Hey, doll fans and Jewel fans. This is Chris from the Jewel Writers Archive and What a Doll podcasts. Today we're doing a very special combined episode on a topic that we think will interest both audiences for each of our podcasts. This is an episode all about Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, the 1993 toy line that never quite made it off the ground. And with me today, I have What a Doll co-host Terry.
Hi.
And Ronnie from the Jewel Writers Archive.
Hey everyone, it's Ronnie.
So, first off, when did each of you first become aware of this as a possibility?
When did we open the Jewel Writers Archive? That's when.
2015.
I just mean it was you.
Oh, I brought this to your attention.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Chris, did you know about it way back when?
You know, I had run across an old, it was probably like a GeoCities website back in the day.
Ooh.
That was all about this, and I was fascinated. It had, these low quality scans of the catalogs, and I was mesmerized because it was very, very similar to what I was really obsessed with, for the last 25 plus years, Jewel Riders. And having something that was so similar that could have been has always tickled my fancy.
Right. How could it not?
I know. It's like big hair, big magic.
Ooh, right.
Speaking of big hair, okay, are we going to start with the Wonder Woman character? Because we got to go back to the 70s with Miss Linda Carter as well. So before we take it to the 90s, can we just sidestep to talk a little bit about the history of Wonder Woman herself?
So rewind your clocks from 1993 to 1941, which is the year that Wonder Woman debuted in Sensation Comics. And she was the creation of a man named William Moulton Marston, who was, weirdly, the inventor of the polygraph lie detector test.
Well, I think his lasso of truth has something to do with that.
That's why everyone's like, the lasso of truth, of course. But also a man who was in, polyamorous relationships and...
With women or men?
With women.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
He and his wife had, a girlfriend between them who lived with them and was his assistant. This is all information that can be read in Jill Lepore's book, The Secret History of Wonder Woman. Highly recommend reading it. There's a great Wall Street Journal article, I believe, interviewing her, and I'll link that in the show notes for anybody who wants to read. But yeah, it's a great book, fascinating history of Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman is a character who was kind of loosely born out of Greek mythology. She's an Amazon. She lives on the secret island of Themyscira, where her mother Hippolyta is the ruler of all the Amazons. It's a female-only society, which, by the way, in more recent years, DC has definitely acknowledged that, this is a society of lesbians.
Oh, have they?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Maybe not all of them, but, Wonder Woman has basically said in some comics, I grew up on an island of all women, you do the math in terms of relationships.
Interesting. I did not know that. Does that mean that Wonder Woman herself is a lesbian?
I think she's bisexual.
Is she? Well, we could just have this whole conversation about this.
I know.
All I was going to say was I wanted to bring up the fact that I often hear people when they talk about the Amazons, they often will cite them and call them Amazonians, but it's Amazons. I just wanted to be grammatically correct here.
Yes.
Which one is it?
As far as I know, it's Amazons.
Okay, so what's this Amazonian thing?
Maybe it's people who work for Amazon.com.
Ridiculous. Okay. So Wonder Woman is a DC character, and she was created in the 40s, as you mentioned. And then she really kind of was featured in a lot of things, but media-wise, for me personally, I think the 1970s show. Was there something in between the comics and that you know of?
she was featured in a few animations, things like DC Super Friends in the 70s, but that's a lot of that is concurrent with the Linda Carter show.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. I was gonna give a little bit of history to the Wonder Woman show.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I have some thoughts. So since we were talking about, lesbians and things like that, the Linda Carter character is such a gay icon. And
100%.
It's so funny because I don't know. I mean, maybe we can have this conversation too about like what exactly makes her the gay icon, because not everyone is like, oh my gosh, the 1960s Batman is a gay icon. I mean, true, he's campy, but it's like people just latch on to this character. And the show was on ABC originally, and then it went to CBS. But the ABC one, it was the first season, and it ran for the 3 seasons from 1975 to 1979. And the interesting thing, well, at least for me, because I love period pieces, and being that it's from the 40s, it takes place during World War II, and it's one of my favorite eras. I love the 30s, I love the 40s, of course I love the 80s and 90s, but for me, the 70s, personally, is a dark period. Like, I am not a fan of many things 70s, and so this show is supposed to take place in the 1940s, but for me, as a child, I never got that, because, like, the acting style, the cinematography, like, except for, like, the sets themselves, everything screams 70s. So it's like, even in the first episodes, when she, like, goes into the current world, it's just like everyone kind of acts, in my own opinion, like how they would in the 70s. Like, it acts like a 70s sitcom. And it's kind of funny, because I'm like, how would it have, maybe looked if they had been a little bit more period appropriate or whatever? I mean, when Wonder Woman as Diana Prince brings back Major Steve back to the United States after he drops into what they call, I think it's Paradise Island.
Paradise Island's the other name for Themyscira, yeah.
So that's so see, again, they had a lot less, like, sidestep, but it's like, I think that, like, Xena did it a little bit better. Like, I think, like, Xena, and that's another gay icon.
I was gonna say another
I know, right?
Gay icon.
And so it's kind of like, I felt like that storytelling was a lot better and, like, just like the general stuff, but it's like, it's kind of the same idea of having this very power, focused woman. And so anyway, so back to Linda Carter over here, and this is the 1940s, and she's walking around essentially in this glittering bathing suit. And, like, the men are reacting, but, like, everyone else is just kind of like, oh, well, whatever, like, and it's just like, no, like, this is the 1940s. Like, there would be a lot more going on. And besides that, it's during World War II. Like, there should be a lot more, like, World War II stuff, like rationing and things like that. Like, they mentioned that in the first episode, but it's like, you don't really see a lot of stuff that signals that. That's just me looking at it from, like, a lens of, like, wanting it to basically look like Pearl Harbor or something like that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it moved networks, didn't the time period of the show change?
Yes. So then it also changed names. It went from being just Wonder Woman to the New Adventures of Wonder Woman, and it takes place in the current period. And I think that that's why so many people associate that show with the 70s. And I wonder if there wasn't some studio exec who watched it and was like, guys, why are we making this period piece when it just looks like it's shot today? So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the storyline had something to do with it, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
Well, I've got a genuine question about her. So is it Linda or
Carter?
Yeah, Linda Carter. Is it her who's the gay icon, or Wonder Woman? I mean, I know they both are.
Both.
But...
Linda Carter as Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And it also has Cloris Leachman as her mother as well.
Okay. Why is that? Because, like, I mean, I'm not a Wonder Woman fan. I don't hate her, but I was never really Like,
Great way to open the episode, Terry.
right. But maybe with Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, maybe, like, if we would have gotten that, maybe I would be a Wonder Woman fan.
I honestly think her popularity as a gay icon of the 70s is really related to the children who watched her on TV. She's very drag queen, she's very campy, but she's also very earnest and very kind and accepting.
Okay.
And I think it's that combination of kindness and campy fabulousness that often draws people in the gay community to these kinds of characters.
Well, I think it's also being like the Ariel, the fish out of water. Like, we identify with them because they don't fit in. They don't meet the norms, and so we see ourselves in that, and we're like, oh, that's the person I can relate to because they don't meet what society says is normal.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally see it.
Yeah, it's like I do wish. I mean, I'm always wishing that they lean more and more into the mythology related background of the character. And I know there was a big push in the 80s in the comics that they did like a 12 labors kind of Hercules story, but with Wonder Woman. And it was like to like regain her powers or something like that. And they really leaned into the mythology aspect, and I don't think it's ever totally gone away since. But Wonder Woman's epithets basically in the early years were also things like Great Hera and Suffering Sappho and all of these ridiculous sayings.
Oh, I like it.
It's very in alignment with like the Batman show and things like that.
Exactly. There was definitely the taking of these characters from their sort of camp 50s and 60s roles and then rolling them into television based on that. So, when it's like you say, when Tim Burton comes along in the 80s and makes this dark, brooding Batman, people are like, but where's Adam West?
Where's the shark repellent?
Exactly. They're used to it being a camp thing. Instead of this,
it was really, like taking it more seriously.
Rich, this rich layered kind of story.
Well, I think that's going to be a conversation for me later. We're definitely going to cover that part of it.
Okay.
The story elements. But yes, okay. So I wanted to give everyone a little bit of history because I think now we know. She's a DC superhero. She was created in the 40s. There was a show. She's a gay icon. She was also featured on other animated superpower episodes with the other DC characters. So she definitely did start to see, some involvement in the 70s. And I think that sets the stage for what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so, and then remember, by the late 70s, you had Superman come onto the big screen, the first real big superhero movie.
It was a huge success.
Huge success, yeah. And then you had, 3 more follow-ups to that. In the 80s, you had Batman launching with another 3 follow-ups.
And Supergirl.
Supergirl, yes.
That wonderful campy movie, which also Supergirl ties into something conversation-wise later as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Maiden of Steel.
Yes.
I love it.
And
can I be her for Halloween?
If you want.
You should.
Oh my gosh, I will. No, I won't. Someone want to sew me a costume? I'll wear it. How about that?
So in the 90s, after these big successes, they started to make animation of the DC superheroes again. Batman the Animated Series followed by Superman the Animated Series in that very distinctive sort of deco style.
Inspired by the Fleischer Superman.
Exactly.
I'm going to throw that in there since it's all
the
DC.
Max Fleischer Superman cartoons from the 30s, which
right,
are
that's what inspired
fabulous
Batman.
if you've never seen them.
Yeah.
And,
lots of animation history here.
Yes.
It all ties together, like everything. I mean, you don't think Jewel Riders or Tenko is coming up. Oh, but it is. It is.
But it is.
Uh-huh.
So in the 90s, there was like, okay, well, we haven't really done anything with our third big DC superhero, which is Wonder Woman. And so here comes Mattel after, in their years after making She-Ra Princess of Power in the 80s, they proved that there was a market for action fashion dolls and, all of the various She-Ra knockoffs that came along.
Mm-hmm.
But, She-Ra ends in like here? 87, right?
I don't know the timing, but you said something I want to add. But go ahead and finish talking about She-Ra and Mattel. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's, from the mid to late 80s to the early 90s, we're probably talking like 6 to 7 years between the end of Wonder Woman. I'm sorry, the end of She-Ra and the Star Riders comics coming about. So, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, since we're now starting to bring up Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, during its early years, a Mattel spokeswoman talking of Wonder Woman says that it will be superheroines who will be non-violent and have lots of hair to comb. And I just love that it's like, well, apparently nothing says excitement for girls like non-violence and lots of hair to comb.
Oh, yes.
It's just so ridiculous. Like, and again, I have lots of thoughts that I will share later, but yes, that was that.
Yeah. There's a line promoting it from Jill Barad, who was the president of Mattel at the time, that says, this toy line offers new, powerful role models for girls. Wonder Woman and the Star Riders will continue Mattel's tradition of providing positive and empowering toys, to which the writer of the article then references the Math is Hard Barbie, which made me laugh.
I didn't know what that is. Did you look it up? Because I never actually did.
Yeah, so that's a Barbie that, it was like a talking Barbie that had phrases.
Uh-huh.
And one of the phrases was, math is hard.
Oh, really?
Yes. Very empowering to young girls, right?
That's not the teacher Barbie, is it?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay, because I have that 90s teacher Barbie. That's why I was asking. I was like, I don't think she talks, but I think that the chalkboard talks.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah, I have that one because I really wanted it as a kid. And so I finally bought it years later.
Good.
There you go. Anyway, yeah. Okay, great. I'm so glad. Math is hard. There you go. Hey, I feel that. Math is hard. For anyone
It's
listening, like,
hard.
math is really hard. I hated math. So I guess Barbie and I have so much more in common than I thought. Oh my God. I feel empowered.
So Mattel, along with DC, starts developing this new concept, Wonder Woman and the Star Riders. DC President Jeanette Kahn, meets with Mattel. They start working on this. And it's interesting. So of course, there's Wonder Woman as the star of this venture. And there's two more obscure DC characters, Ice and Dolphin. And then there's two brand new characters. Actually, there's three brand new characters created for this. One, on the good side, we have Solara and Star Lily. And on the bad side, we have Persia, which totally not Catra, guys. Totally not Catra.
Right, nope.
Not the fact that she has a cat eye mask, that she has a purple panther with her. No, not Catra.
And don't forget about also, you've got the She-Ra knockoff animal friends.
Yeah, so all of the animals in this toy line were basically just reruns of She-Ra molds.
Which we also saw later as well.
Yeah. I mean, they got their use out of those molds, let me tell you.
I know, right?
So I like that, they were originally going to use the Justice League member whose name is Fire, but then they didn't want to teach young girls to play with fire, so they changed it to this new character, Solara.
Which I like Solara.
I think it's a pretty name, yeah.
Yeah. But I do have a question regarding the two animals. So the first one is Wonder Woman's flying unicorn, Nightshine. And then there's also a winged horse named Cloud Dancer.
Yes.
Isn't that the same thing? A flying unicorn and a winged horse? I mean,
No,
or is
no,
one
no.
one's
An
an
alicorn
alicorn
and a Pegasus.
Oh my gosh. But it's the same thing. Like, why didn't you give her something else? Like, why does she have two horses? So,
Also, Wonder
what?
Woman has a mode of air
Yes.
transportation.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about Linda Carter's invisible airplane?
The invisible jet is like a classic of Wonder Woman. Like,
It's ridiculous.
it just makes me laugh that they didn't even seem to think about using it here.
Because it's ridiculous. Like, an airplane in this fanciful setting wouldn't have been appropriate.
It could have been a hot selling toy, though. It could have had like a changing room or some like fabulous feature to it, I'm sure.
Oh my god.
Mattel is taking your application right now.
Oh, right.
And then there's Panther, Persia's purple tiger. Do I have to say Persia's?
Probably, if you want to be full Catra clone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Persia. I love it.
So, the Star Rider's base is the Starlight Castle for reasons, which basically floats up in the clouds, and they monitor the Earth. Now, the characters' powers seem to me to be sort of environmental based, and the concept has these like very light save the rainforests and the ozone layer 90s overtones to them.
Captain
Like,
Planet.
Very Captain Planet,
right.
yes. Like, Solara helps things grow, and Dolphin helps the seas, and, Ice wants to stop the polar ice caps from melting, and all of this stuff.
Ooh, fake news.
I know. So, I mean, there was definitely an element, which pretty much every 90s thing at some point had a, like, Save the Rainforest episode.
Tenko did.
Tenko did, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, they had a forest, but they didn't talk about saving it, per se. They were just behind on their agenda. Well, I was going to say also, when you're talking about the Starlight Castle, it doesn't sound anything like the Crystal Castle.
No, not at all.
Exactly.
I'm surprised they didn't just rerun the same mold from the Crystal Castle.
Exactly. Mommy, my toys look exactly like She-Ra. I thought you bought me new toys.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
It was a hand-me-down.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
But I think that's gonna be Wonder Woman the Star Rider's downfall, is that there was so much reuse. So it's kind of like you're trying to create an action story by using, the mode of Barbie and She-Ra basically to create money. Like that's the thing that's happening here, and I think that a lot of the creatives saw through that.
And you paste Wonder Woman on for name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep, for sure.
So each of these dolls came with a kind of like, I'm sure it was magnetic or it clipped onto a belt. It was like a star jewel. And these jewels were basically what helped them control their elements and powers and domains and so forth. And Persia, of course, wants to steal all of the jewels for herself, for power and greed, and because she's greedy.
Just because of reasons.
Basically because she's greedy. Her tagline literally is greedy sorceress.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, I guess that's a motivation.
Because she's greedy. So where are we going to start with this? Are we going to start with the story or the concept or the execution? I'm so excited to give all my feedback. I can't keep it in.
All right. Well, let's start with the only piece of this that was ever fully produced.
Okay.
And that
I'm
is
ready.
that is the Star Riders Cinnamon Mini Buns from Kellogg's comic. Now, this is basically like a mini comic, like from He-Man and She-Ra, but this is like maybe half the size of those. It is tiny in person. Like, I'm like, am I looking at a wallet photo?
Can I just tell you something though, dear?
What?
This was made for little hands,
No,
not for
no.
your hands.
Not
That's
for my
why.
archival glove hands.
Exactly. It's funny. One of the interviews that I was reading, Rick Taylor said that the Kellogg's books were done with vegetable inks and they were glued. They weren't stapled, so that in case the kids ate them, they wouldn't choke on the staples or die from ink poisoning.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely like a perception out there of who the target audience is. So again, dear, I hate to tell you, but you are not their target audience. So that's the reason why the comics are so small.
Yes. It's something a child could put in their pocket, literally.
Exactly.
And yeah, so the tagline is sparkling super heroines. I mean, this thing is just all over the place. It has the Wonder Woman logo above the Star Riders logo that's super 90s looking. And basically, it starts with, east of the sun and west of the moon lies a magical palace, home to 5 beautiful heroines who have sworn to protect the earth. Wonder Woman, Amazon Princess, Ice, ruler of the frozen north, Star Lily, gentle champion whose touch makes deserts bloom, Dolphin, denizen of the deep blue sea, and Solara, child of the blazing sun. And I mean, this is hyperbolic in the extreme.
That's a liner note word.
Yes.
Tell me what hyperbolic is.
Overblown.
Oh, okay. Like me sometimes.
So basically, Persia steals the jewels. The story is Persia steals the Wonder Woman and the Star Riders jewels. And then Earth literally starts falling into chaos. And I'm like, that seems like a really bad way to manage a planet. Like, 5 jewels for these girls. And, Persia insults her cat, which is in the comic is called Panthera instead of Pantha. So who knows what the thing's name was supposed to be.
And
then,
I'm going to tell you something that's also maybe just now it's PC, but she often references the Star Riders as sissy Star Riders. And I don't know if she means sissy like as in like frail or sissy as in like sisters, but I still take offense.
Oh, I mean, her whole line, yeah, she's always like every other line of her is insulting the Star Riders in some way. Like, they're goody two shoes and stupid feline and, blah, blah, blah. And
Sticks
she's
and stones.
just so over the top. I love her.
Do you?
I think she's the most ridiculous part of this entire thing.
Is she?
Is she? I think so.
Well, go ahead.
I think like that was very 90s for any, or like early 90s for any villain to kind of talk like that. Because I can hear like Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers.
Oh, yes. Her lines are very Rita Repulsive.
Yeah.
Like she throws Dolphin in the ocean is like, nice day for a swim. Now you can join a school.
Right.
Like, oh, it's painful. She puts her in a net and is like, that's a net gain and my gain is your loss. It's just so bad. Solara hits somebody with light. It's like, time for you to see the light, Persia.
Right.
It's just so funny.
So good.
But so they eventually, of course, win against Persia, and then in the Lasso of Truth, she says, No, I really want to be part of your sisterhood and work with you and be a Star Rider. But of course, she's lying, which I don't know how she can do that in the Lasso of Truth, but okay.
Minor details.
Yes, but they reference the Starlight Castle and it's got computers and little meeting rooms, and I mean the comic image of it is actually quite pretty. I mean, it's much prettier than the toy they were going to produce.
For all of them, or just for one particular character?
No, I mean for the castle.
Oh, okay. Oh, for
Yeah.
the castle. Oh, okay.
So there's definitely this feeling of like, okay, they're really trying to reform their villainous, which kind of goes along with the like non-violent theme that they talked about for this when they were talking about development. But tell me some thoughts.
I got so many.
Go for it.
Okay, where to begin? Yeah, the logo. I don't like the logo. The cover artwork. I love the cover artwork. The art itself looks like one of those 80s and 90s Barbie coloring books, which I heavily appreciate. One of the characters, I think it's Dolphin. She has like huge hair, and I'm like, oh yes, like
They all have huge hair. You'll have to be more specific.
Well, it's just in this particular panel. I'm like, you'd be a contestant on Drag Race. Okay, we love you. So I love the artwork, where as a creative and someone who'd be working on this project, for me to look at this, it was so boring. It was so just like, why do I care? Like, there's no story development. Like, it jumps right into the plot. Like how you said, there's no motivation for the villainess. She's just greedy. The jewels themselves, because they're all stars, how do you know which one's which? Maybe it's the color. I don't know. But that's kind of stupid. And then like the villainess just like happens into the castle, and like no one stops her. And then all of a sudden, like someone's like, oh, I sense that the jewel is in danger. But it's like, but you didn't sense that the villain was here. Like you didn't know. Like there's no security system.
I love that she literally just finds the jewel in the drawer of a bureau.
Right. So it's like there's no like real thought behind this. I really feel like someone interviewed a 5-year-old and asked them how they would tell the story, and the 5-year-old created the story. Like, that's what I feel. Because the thing is that they already had She-Ra, and if we can go back to a previous podcast, Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld, as examples of how to do a strong female character with world building and story plot. Like, I mean, Amethyst as the archetype, as we talked about for Western magical girls, already set the stage for this idea that there's quests. I was going to say jewel quest, but you know, that there's like quests for regaining gemstones of power. Like Amethyst already did that. And there was a good backstory for the villain, for the reasons why. And I get it that this is just a little comic book inside of a cereal box. But this is the first thing that you are showing the public. And now maybe I'm just too critical because it's like, this is the only thing that exists. Maybe this would have been something like, we're like, oh my gosh, can you believe how different the show actually was compared to the first comic? Like, that's crazy. You know, but
we'll talk about that too.
So, you know, it's just like the story itself. It's like it's so paper thin, and like, you know, exactly like how you said, like there's a plot hole. Like, how does she lie in the lasso of truth unless she was really telling the truth and she really did want to join, but then she just couldn't resist her greed, and so she still stole the other gem anyway after that. And it's like there was just overarching political stuff with like the whole like the forests are dying, and then in the next panel like she shows a farm and she's like, and the farm is back to life and everything's good again and the oceans are back, and it's just like, we get it. Like I can't with this little comic book. I like everything about it except the story, which is like half of it.
Right. So this was, of course, meant to be just one piece of their overall storytelling. So from what I understand, each of the characters was supposed to come with their own mini comic as well.
Yes.
And not only that, but the whole thing was supposed to be supported by like a half-hour animated special, which would also have been released on VHS. And I have to think like, okay, if that had actually been completed and released on VHS, that would have been one of those YouTube, did I dream that Wonder Woman thing up?
Fever dream stuff.
But it's got, the whole concept has a mix of like, I like the idea, but do you understand who Wonder Woman is? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you understand like that you have literally a magical girl character called Amethyst who would have been perfect in
Right.
this instead of making up random characters.
New characters. Which you said that there was already characters. Was Ice and Dolphin already characters?
Ice and Dolphin were already characters. They're, I mean, obviously very different than what they look here.
Oh, are they regular DC superheroes?
Yeah, so Ice is a member of like the Justice League in the comics.
Oh.
And I don't know that I've ever actually encountered Dolphin. I think she's a relatively minor character.
I see. See, these are the things I don't know and I learn. The more you know.
Exactly. But yeah, Star Lily, Solara, and Persia are all...
Persia.
Persia!
They're all the new characters.
They're all
created.
the new characters, yeah.
And then there was the idea to put Supergirl in there as the year 2 edition.
Yeah, so there is an image you can see of basically a prototype Supergirl. And that is so fun. By the way, a lot of this information can be found in an issue of the comics magazine called Back Issue. And that was their June 2006 issue.
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah,
you know, it's funny
you can
because
purchase that online for like $10, I want to say.
it's like, you know, back in the 90s when this was released. And it's one of those things like the second season Jewel Rider toys where it showed up in a Toy Fair catalog and people were like, that's the only way that we know that it was possibly going to be a thing because we have photographic proof of the prototypes. And then the 90s happened, nothing happened. And then, you know, a little bit more than 10 years later, you know, this article in this magazine appears and it talks a little bit about the history. And then here we are again, like another 15 years later, where we then are now talking about the article and about the prototypes. So this is like a 30 years? Oh my gosh. Too long. Journey.
So this article was actually written by a man named Andy Mangels, who is a science fiction author, and he's also he moderates the annual Gays in Comics panel for Comic-Con. So I'm like, of course, Wonder Woman is being brought to people by the gays.
Mm-hmm. They just can't let her go.
Exactly.
But why would you?
So, but he's fairly well known, I believe, in like the pop culture community as an author and researcher, and so this kind of article is, you know, right up that kind of alley. So I highly recommended, you know, support the magazine and pick up a copy of this article.
Oh, I think I'll just go down to my local bookstore and just buy it off the shelf.
I'm sure this 2006 magazine will still be available.
Right. Let me just go to my local Borders. Oh, never mind. Well, maybe my local Barnes and... Oh, never mind. Well, maybe Toys R Us will have it.
If you're fortunate, you could find one in Canada, maybe.
Or maybe KB stores. Okay, go ahead.
Toys R Us probably would have... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
They might.
Just a random thought that popped in my head. Toys R Us probably would have had the best selection of Wonder Woman and the Star Riders.
Oh, I can imagine a beautiful end cap display.
Yeah. Yep, I was thinking that too.
You could have your little cardboard cutout and everything. Fantastic. Okay, so I want to talk about these dolls. So,
Oh wait, Tara, did you have anything to add about the
comic.
Yeah.
comic?
I I when I reflipped through it, like however 20, 30 years later, I still like the style of it, but it's very dated. Like the coloring, like the teeny little dots, it's very I don't know the term for it, but like it's very 80s or maybe super early 90s. How they have like a bunch of color dots for the coloring. I don't know if you
Right.
guys know what I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
and
I think
then
that's
like,
also an artifact of it being blown up
oh right,
so much. I don't know that you would notice it quite as much on a appropriately sized, 4-inch by 3-inch comic.
yeah, that's true.
And
Um,
Terry, you need to also let the audience know about your history with the comic as well.
so when I was in like first or second grade, I remember being at my desk and another boy had the comic and he was flipping through it, and I was like, oh, okay, can I look at that? Because it looked like it's something I'd be interested in. Being interested in like mermaids and like Catwoman and Batman and um, just that type of stuff. Wizard of Oz. I'm trying to think of what else. But anyways, I was drawn to it, and then like I remember flipping through it, and then after a minute, he's like, "You can have it," because I think I asked him where he got it, and he told me from Cinnabon or some cereal box, and I took it home, and I don't know what happened to it. Maybe he took it back off my desk. I don't know, but I remember flipping through it and liking it at the time and thinking it was pretty cool. And it's probably something I would have been slightly obsessed with back in the early 90s, along with The Little Mermaid and all that stuff.
I can definitely see myself, if these had ever come to market, like staring longingly at them in this toy store and not being able to buy
Yeah.
them because they were too girly.
But that's the whole point about this toy line is that the plot like was just very girly. Like, and it's supposed to appeal to the girls of a certain age. So that's why, it has things like flying ponies with long manes and tails, and it's centered around magic jewelry and, with jewels and
Yes, we
such
should
like
we
that.
should note that the star belts on the dolls that had their gems became, a ring for you to wear.
Yes. So there
Right.
was that play aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Um,
jewelry play, there's hair play, exactly.
right, right. So I mean, it's again, I think that you said it earlier, but it's kind of like they just kind of tacked Wonder Woman onto this project for recognizability. Like that was the extent of it, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder if they were trying to like grab the parents of children with nostalgia, with having Wonder Woman 2 and being like, oh, I used to watch Wonder Woman when I was your age, or
I mean, that would have
um,
helped. Yeah.
right, for
I
sure.
mean, yeah, like parents of kids in the 90s would have seen the Wonder Woman show in the 70s. So
Right.
there's definitely a recognition aspect for an intergenerational character. But, they're going to look at the rest of these and like, who's this? Who's Solara?
And I don't remember Linda Carter wearing this.
Right.
I think we need to note that, Wonder Woman's traditional color scheme is gold, red, blue, and white. And in this Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, her red is gone and it is pink, which is not surprising based on, Mattel toy research. As we've definitely talked about this with the toys designer for Jewel Riders, Greg Attore, where he basically told us, in all the market testing, young girls almost always gravitate toward pink as their favorite color. And, I mean, it was very canny on the part of Mattel to just like, oh, we can just shift this red to a little pink
Hmm.
Right.
and get another pink in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the logo itself, Terry, you might have something to say about this, but it almost looks gem-like. Like, I like the Star Riders logo. It's just because they kind of tacked on the Wonder Woman logo on top of it. It just, I'm not sure I like how it flows. But yeah, it looks very gem-like. So I am wondering also, like, is this, Wonder Woman again? I mean, is this Mattel again kind of feeling like, well, we were already, out of luck with gems, so how can we, create another strong girl-focused, like, phenomena?
Right. It definitely, it has that fade to it, like the yellow, pinkish, for sure. Yeah, like, and I'm flipping through the comic again too, real quick. There's nothing there. I mean, like, it's beautiful imagery, but aside from that,
yeah, the art is technically very nice. Now, one of the things we have access to that we'll be linking to in the show notes. I'm putting together something for the Jewel Riders website on the history of this property that we'll link to in the show notes. But one of the things we have are scans from the Mattel 1993 Toy Fair catalog. And the other thing we have scans of, aside from the mini comic, are a promotional folder that was probably basically given out to, like, potential licensors by DC and Mattel that has, the basic history of Star Riders and the idea and what kind of, merchandising they're going to do. And it has full page profile and art of each of the characters, which is really lovely artwork. But I have to say, I look at these characters and, Wonder Woman comes from Themyscira. Like, Solara is, like, literally as old as the Aztec pyramids. Ice is old. Like, Star Lily survived, like, the apocalypse of her, like, whole culture. And I'm like, these are not relatable characters for young girls.
Mm-hmm.
And in the article with Andy Mangels, like, they talk about the idea that instead of these, like, basically, like, ancient, ageless, powerful characters, they were going to go with the idea that these are all younger characters who receive their powers from some light hope, like, being, and Wonder Woman kind of mentors them a little bit.
Oh, I wanted Grandma Solara.
I wanted 2,000-year-old Solara.
Exactly. Star Lily comes with wheelchair and walker.
But it's like, I think about that, and I think that is so much better to me, as if you wanted to make something relatable for young kids. I mean, you can have, or, like, you could have, like, one or two of them be old and ancient characters, and you could have others be newer, so that you could have a mix. But if they're all, like, yes, we live in this flying palace for centuries and just watch over the world, I'm like, okay, Jesus, like,
right.
I'm like, and you just put your gem in that drawer? Is that it?
Exactly. You better say your hail Wonder Womans.
But I mean, the writer in me wants to, like, take this whole thing apart and really suss out, like, okay, that works, that doesn't work, and, like, rebuild it just for the fun of it.
Maybe we can have a contest.
Redo fun. Wonder Woman and the Star Riders. We didn't want to do it in the first place. That's why it was never made.
Right.
So the Mattel 93 catalog is where I think the original images all come from, showing these dolls that they were going to make for this concept.
I have a favorite. Do you want to know who it is? Or can you guess?
Who your favorite is?
Yeah.
Let me see.
I've got
I'm gonna say it's
contenders.
Solara
It is, of course.
because she has pink hair. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and I love her outfit. And I got a second one. Who's the second one?
Oh, your second one. I'm gonna say it's Star Lily.
Yes, I love it. Because she looks like a sunflower. Yeah,
I think
that's
my
two
favorite
favorites.
is Ice.
I was just gonna say, I think that's probably yours. Yeah.
What about you, Terry?
Oh, I don't know. I'm looking at them right now. I like Ice because of the blue hair. Who doesn't love a
That's
doll with blue hair?
Dolphin.
Oh, oops. You're
That's
right.
the one I figured you would like. Yeah.
And
She's
The one with all the
mermaid-like.
dolphins all over it, that's Dolphin.
yeah. Who knew?
Right?
And then I think my other favorite one would be probably Persia.
I love that no one shows Wonder Woman. It's kind of like no one shows Guinevere for all those people
I
who love
know.
Guinevere.
But it's like you look at Wonder Woman with her little Party City wand,
Yeah.
and it's so depressing.
Like, it looks like a little Christmas tree.
They could have made her wand into a toy too.
Mm,
I
yeah.
know. I mean, there's definitely options here.
Why would you ever make the actual gem or the jewel into a toy? Why would you do that?
Yes.
No one would do that. Children don't want that.
It comes with a drawer too.
Exactly.
Drawer where I can lose my mystic earth controlling gem
You're
in the back
ridiculous. Oh
with
my
some
God.
pens.
Oh my God. Some pens. Oh my gosh,
Maybe
ridiculous.
a few chords are in there too.
Notes.
So each of these dolls had action features in addition.
Ring.
I mean, yeah, so there was the ring, like Ice has a ringing wand, which whatever that means. It just says there's literally a text bubble above the wand that just says ringing.
It's her phone. That's what it is. It rings, and she's like, "Hello, this is Ice. How can I help you?" Oh, you want a snowstorm? I'll whip that right up.
Exactly.
It kind of reminds me of the Sim Jewel too above her head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, yes. We will have to go back to the Earth jobs of these characters because they cracked me up.
Yeah. Did you say it looks like the Darkstone?
No, I didn't, but it kind of does now that you say that.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Terry, what did you say it looks like?
Oh, the Sim Jewel. Or like the little, I think it was a jewel or diamond they have. When you play The Sims, they have like a little green diamond following
Oh, I see.
above their head.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it does, kind of.
Yeah, so like Star Lily was scented, Solara had like a shining light from her gem.
Imagine that! A
Exactly.
light feature that lights up.
Persia's thing was basically like, oh, well, her cape's Velcro. You can attach little jewels to it.
That's how she snags them.
Wonder Woman's wand twirled somehow. I'm not sure the mechanism on that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Dolphin
Shake
has
it
bubbles.
vigorously.
Yes.
I
The
was
child
thinking
just
that. They
spins
shook
it
it
real
stick-
fast in her hand.
Exactly. Well, Persia also comes with a mask as well.
Yes, that's your play
Ooh.
feature, putting a mask on your doll.
I can't wait.
Who is she?
You never know. Oh, it's like Clark Kent. Oh, take it off. Oh, that's who it is. It was Persia all along.
I know. How shocking.
Right? Yes.
So, like, if I remember correctly, Ice literally works in an ice cream parlor.
No.
Dolphin works
Stop.
at fake SeaWorld.
Oh my gosh.
Star Lily works in the gardens. And, God, where does Solara work?
At the
If
local.
it's a pizza oven, I'm gonna die.
Not at a pizza oven. No, I was gonna say she works at the local energy plant or something like that. Oh my gosh. And where does Diane work?
Diane, she's probably a secretary somewhere.
Hmm? Isn't that, but did she ever become a secretary in the show? Anyway, sidetrack, sorry. Does it actually say what they do? Like, where is that written?
That's
Right.
all written in the promotional folder.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't remember reading that.
Wonder Woman works as a doctor.
Ooh.
Okay.
Doesn't say what's...
Solara is a photographer.
Okay. Oh, see, she and I have things in common.
Okay. Ice is actually, she's a writer, illustrator, and part-time employee at an ice cream shop.
Oh, okay.
Aw.
Part-time.
Because, ageless women of the frozen north got to make a little money too.
Right.
What else does it
Dolphin
say?
works at Ocean World
Ooh.
because in the age of Blackfish, that's not problematic at all.
Hmm.
And
Starlily.
Starlily is a florist and gardener.
Okay.
I'm like, you're telling me this girl who's all about saving the plants is gonna cut them up
To sell to people?
to sell to people?
That's a great point that you bring up. There you go.
And Persia, she don't have a job. She's just greedy.
She's too greedy to clock in.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I would have rather actually Wonder Woman have been like a lawyer or something.
Well, yeah. But remember, this is non-violence.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Lawyers are violent, apparently.
You might have to defend a criminal.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, right.
I like the toys. I like the
toys.
the idea. It's just, see, this is where Greg, who's the art director for Jewel Riders, really comes into play with his knowledge, and each element that we're creating for the play of the toy needs to tell a story, and somehow that works into the storyline or the actual show. And I think the biggest problem is that, just as we're sitting here like kind of mocking it, like, oh, Ice works at an ice cream store, or it's so predictable, or like these people work here and they have jobs. Like, isn't their job to save the world? I mean, how are they working these jobs but also flying up in the air in a castle? Like, why do they have to have jobs? Like,
Right.
it's just there's so much for me that's happening here that it's just disconnected. Like, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, they all have like real life jobs because they don't live in a castle in the sky. Like, they live with the rest of the people. But in this story, it's something different. And it's just like, I think that it goes back to, Chris, kind of what you were saying with like, what does a child identify with? And I think it's like, kids, I don't know, like, kids don't care if you have a job. Like, that's not something they identify with. Like, they're going to identify more with the fact that you have problems with authority, or that you just want to have fun or something,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, I would much prefer that these are characters from disparate backgrounds coming together despite their differences to save the world
But there you go.
than these mystical ancient beings who all are like the get-along gang. Except Persia.
Go forth and write it. Who's just greedy. She's just greedy.
We can't have greed here. No, no, no.
Exactly.
You can't want things.
This is not violent. Apparently, greed is very violent.
Yes. But
Also,
these dolls are
very-
adorable.
I was gonna say they're also very clothed. Like,
Mhm.
they all got capes or some sort of something on them, but like they all have like coverings. Like, it's not, your sexy Wonder Woman that, Linda Carter portrayed, or even in the newer, kind of like versions of her where she's just kind of jumping around in a mini skirt. Like, she's got tights on, and,
Yeah.
she's covered up and things like that. So that's
Mhm.
also something to note.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, almost head to toe. Like,
Mhm.
Ice is covered, Dolphin is covered, so is Solar, and so is Starlily. Like,
Yep.
Persia shows a little bit of bicep, and that's about it.
Remember,
right.
she's bad. That's why.
I know.
Only bad girls show their shoulders.
Well, Wonder Woman has the most cleavage out of all of them.
I know.
Or show the most cleavage.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't extend her
The top.
her top all the way up.
Yeah. But then it wouldn't have been recognizable as one.
Mhm.
That's the
Oh,
only
true.
thing. But I mean, like I said, I like the idea. I like the actual dolls themselves. I think it's a very cute line. But the problem is that, as Greg has said, if you don't identify with the story, if you can't easily I mean, they got that where it's like it's very recognizable who's quote unquote who. Although I would say Ice, I'm surprised that it's not more blue, that it actually is so pink.
Well, they
but-
spent all the blue on Dolphin.
Yeah,
Right.
well, she's more teal and greens. But yeah, I mean, it could have been like a nice light blue. Like that's kind of what I was thinking. But the point is that like I don't know, like recognizable wise, and again, like they all just have stars. Like unlike the enchanted jewels of jewel writers, it isn't each individual one that's like, oh, this is this jewel or that's this gemstone that has this power. Like it. And that
Right,
comes
like,
from amethyst.
You
Like
could have had a
amethyst.
snowflake jewel and a
Right,
starfish
right.
Yeah,
jewel.
that would have been cool.
But the thing is that I think that that's actually where Jewel Riders was kind of unique in that it did create that. Because like amethyst, for instance, all the gems are kind of just gemstones. They're not, cut into specific shapes. So that is something that Jewel Riders kind of did that was unique.
And even though these dolls never made it to market, it sounds like retailer reception was pretty lukewarm. Sounds like they might have had some She-Ra still sitting on the shelves somewhere.
Mhm.
Right. Well, if I may interject, I thought about this too. Do you think it could have been because of Sailor Moon coming and like they were making dolls of that too, and they were about that size?
Were those released around this time?
Yeah, like 94, 95.
Yeah.
But this was coming out in 93, so it's a little bit
Oh,
early.
Unless
I mean,
maybe they do.
I honestly imagine that this just didn't get picked up because people didn't know who these characters were and they didn't feel like they could sell this somehow. But I do wonder what was Power Rangers was super big in 93.
Mm-hmm. I was
I
just
wonder-
thinking Power
Yeah.
Rangers.
It's like I wonder if people were looking at Power Rangers was very popular with girls too.
Mhm.
Right.
I think Power Rangers crossed the gender divide. And Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, by comparison, feels a little antiquated.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look how we all get along. Look how magic we are. It's very 80s fantasy, just slightly updated.
It's funny that the just kind of the style, I think Terry, you pointed this out, that it does look very 80s. And it's like oftentimes Jewel Riders gets that kind of thought of people like, oh, like that's so 80s. And like I look at this, I'm like, it doesn't seem as 80s as this. Like this like kind of looks like right out of the 80s more than it looks like from the 90s. Like, but that's just my thought. And the thing about like these heroines is that it seems like it was really popular right around this time period. I mean, you've got, which, we'll bring up, but it's like you've got Tenko, you've got Jewel Riders, you've got Sky Dancers. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many of these like girl-powered, focused heroines. And maybe it was like, if it had been more like She-Ra or Amethyst in a time when there wasn't a lot of this. But I think that maybe this might have just been like white noise. Like people were just kind of like, we've seen better. Like other people are doing it better. Like whereas
Yeah.
if it was something that was more unique, I think that maybe then people might have been more receptive. But I think that it's really just because like nothing really stood out about it, and they looked at it and it was just like, this is She-Ra. It's basically trying, as much as I love it, it's like it's trying to basically be Barbie and the Rockers. It's just like, oh well, we already had a hit, so like let's kind of try it again and see how it works.
Do you think maybe because it didn't have a single male character or doll in the line. Maybe that hurt it too a little bit because it was very boy dominated. We had like Batman, Power Rangers, Biker Mice from Mars, I think, like all of
Superman,
these other
etc.
Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but
I
it's not the
think-
right outlet, I don't think.
I do think that not having a romantic interest
Oh.
is an interesting choice.
Oh, what's my favorite from Amethyst? What's his name?
Carnelian.
Oh, Cornelius.
You're ridiculous.
He's so sexy. And if no one knows about this, you got to listen to our podcast on the Jewel Writers Archive about Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld.
They were good episodes.
Oh, he is something. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked that. I think Solara should have been the lucky girl to have a boyfriend.
Maybe she could have picked him up as her job as a fashion photographer.
Oh, there you go. He was a model. He was an underwear model. There you go. She's so lucky. I want to be her.
But it's true that Barbie has long had, if you're talking about role play toys for girls, Barbie has friends and boyfriends and you can act out romantic scenes. But of course, when you're the 2,000-year-old Aztec goddess, maybe you're just over romance.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yep, she had her fill.
Maybe she needs some human sacrifices. Or
Ooh.
I'm sure that was the first thing on Mattel's mind.
I'm sure.
Uh-huh. I wonder if the costumes weren't too elaborate where like the kids recognize them, but it just kind of looks more like fashion model rather than like superhero per se.
Well,
There's something about it.
Well, yeah, they definitely don't read superhero to me.
Mm-hmm.
No.
They read magical girl to me.
Which
overall.
I mean, we love, we still like, but it's just like I think that,
you're like supermodel magical girl. You're right.
which I love, but it's like again, that's a very niche target market. So if their target market was girls and gay boys, they got it. 100%.
They hit the mark.
Exactly. But it's like not. I don't know. It's like there's just something about it that just didn't fly, and obviously that's how everyone else felt. But I think it's kind of like the creatives at DC were just not feeling it, and Mattel was basically like, all we see are just potential dollar signs. So again, you're creating something that doesn't really have a good story, that doesn't really have, a good reason for existing. Mm-hmm. So of course, like no one's gonna really have a strong pull for it.
Right. It's a very phoned in effort from DC.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Mattel people did a lovely job with the dolls. I really do. Like, I think they're pretty. I think they would have stood out on shelves even amidst everything else. But if the story is not there to back them up in something associated with comics and stories, then you're dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm wondering now, how did it get approved to be put in cereal? Like, if they weren't feeling it, how did it even make it that far?
Because they didn't make the decision yet.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I'm assuming that's one of those things that's just made it out before the axe fell.
It's #marketing. You gotta let people know about your product, before you start selling toys.
Yeah.
And I know, like, apparently some of the animation has been screened, but I could not find any of it online. If anybody knows where I can find that, please let me know.
That would be nice. Maybe someone's home video from that.
Yeah, I mean,
San Diego
Comic
Con
like
or something.
a 10-second clip or something of recorded at Comic Con, I'd love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, the animation designs for this were done by Steve Gordon, who was at one time a Disney animator, but he's responsible for developing the looks of both the Swan Princess in 94, so right after this, and X-Men Evolution in 2001. They both are his designs.
Huh.
So it's interesting, here's another comic-based property we could have had from.
Right. But if he worked on it, we may not have gotten what we got.
Right. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have been available for the Swan Princess after if he'd been stuck doing this.
Right. I do wonder, and I've got a question for you too. If they had been Barbie size, like 11 and a half, or even like 10 inch, a little bit bigger and like with removable clothing, do you think they would have gotten the green light to go?
I think that's really interesting.
I go back to what are the sun and the moon Barbie thing?
Guardian Goddesses.
Yeah, that one. And that wasn't very popular, was it?
Yes, but those designs are not the best either.
But I'm just saying, their whole point with this, Terry, was that they wanted to go into the action figure market. They wanted to make girl action figures. That was their kind of reason for doing this. And, this is, Chris, whenever you want to take the turn at the fork in the road, like that also led then to the next properties as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this had done well as small dolls, maybe you would have gotten like a special, like large Wonder Woman, Barbie. But they've definitely made Wonder Woman Barbies, like several of them over the years.
That's true.
And Supergirl Barbies and.
Mm-hmm.
But after being scrapped, these designs and these molds that they developed for Star Riders did not go unutilized.
Neither did the She-Ra molds.
Went on for where. So where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I guess we can start with the other magical girl property, Tanko. Let's give a little bit of background for those What a Doll listeners who might not know what Tanko is.
Take it away, please.
So Tanko is a 1995 doll animated series combo based on the real-life Japanese stage magician Princess Tanko, but it's done with her as a magical girl searching for the missing star fire gems, not the star jewels, the star fire gems.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Not the serial numbers filed off at all.
Exactly.
And those dolls use these exact molds. But instead of, and they use many of the gimmicks, jewels that attach and detach and fur cape pieces. But there's no like play elements with the Tanko dolls, like the Wonder Woman dolls. Like there's no lights or, sounds or anything like that. But there is, the search for the missing jewels in this 6-inch doll form. And
the costumes as well are very much.
And the costumes bear great similarities.
Top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tanko dolls are different in that there's no painted costume elements for them. They're all fabric. So the Tanko dolls each wear like a jumpsuit, which has pieces that attach over top. And I wonder if that was Mattel being like, oh, let's make this a little less action figure and a little more doll.
Doll, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, exact same body molds. But before they used these for Tanko, they also used them for the Disney musical princesses and the Disney. Is it Disney Bubble?
No, musical princesses.
Okay.
Bubble is a different thing. It's scented bubbles. There's music. There was so many of these things.
But they're all the same form factor, right?
Yeah, they're all the 6.5.
Those small dolls.
Size.
Yeah, and in the article, I have scans of the Mattel 94 catalog of those dolls that you can compare to these and see, oh yeah, these are definitely the same thing. And it kills me because they made boys for that too. Like they made Prince Charming and Aladdin and the Beast.
Like why didn't they make?
Why didn't they use
for
those for
Tanko.
this or Tenko or like. So yeah, those small doll bodies got like a lot of use. I mean, I'm sure Mattel put a ton into developing the tooling for them, because developing tooling for a brand new mold for a toy is like the biggest piece of the expense.
Well, and then later, Greg would use one of the musical dolls, Jasmine, to tool Guinevere for the Jewel Riders line. So essentially, Wonder Woman is, I guess, the mother, at least the toys are, of all of those prototypes. And, you know, Tenko and the musical princesses and Jewel Riders.
Mm-hmm. And we should not forget to mention that the animals in the Tenko line are, once again, that same horse used for Pearl Rider and the same cat used for Ninjara.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you got to spread those tooling dollars out over
Right.
the life of a toy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I love that also the castle is basically just a front. Like, Mattel knows how to make Barbie houses. Why didn't they just make,
You're right.
like, a house? Why is it like this? It's really...
Oh, yeah. The castle is the cheapest place that I have ever seen in my life.
Oh,
it's really
sure.
sad.
It's it's just upsetting. It's like, and their big gimmick is, oh, it comes with those glow-in-the-dark star stickers that you could have bought for $3 at the checkout counter at the grocery store.
At Toys
Right.
R Us, yeah. Well, later you have like little cards of Wonder Woman. That's from Star Riders, isn't it? Like there's like little yellow pieces of animation of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so we'll have these in the article as well. These are part of Steve Gordon's Wonder Woman designs.
Which is so different than the comic.
Right.
Yes.
And even his artwork, the coloring, it's red, it's not pink.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the original I'm assuming that's the original prototype, she's also much more Americana than she is Barbie superhero.
Yes, there's this other version that we have that shows a much different look for Persia and a much different look for Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman is, you know, red, white, and blue. She looks much more Linda Carter with her American flag cape.
Mm-hmm.
And the Persia looks very much like Cheetah, who is the Wonder Woman, you know, main enemy from her comics.
Maybe I have an unpopular opinion, but do you think, I mean, I love the pinks. I mean, it's my favorite color, but if they had stuck with a more traditional red, white, and blue motif for Wonder Woman, would it have been more successful because kids would have identified and seen that she was Wonder Woman, and then maybe the people around her could have been a little less like, you know, fashion model superhero and be more superhero, like kind of like what they did with Tenko and the Guardians of the Magic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Allie. I mean, but then that's the problem, is the disconnect of the toys, as we've talked about in the Tenko episode on the Jewel Riders Archive, is that the dolls look like Vegas showgirls, and in the show they actually look like they could actually fight. But like, you ain't gonna be fighting in your Vegas outfit as a doll. Like, that's just not happening, you know. And I think that that's the thing, is that it's almost like around this era, whoever was in charge at Mattel, and it wasn't Greg because he was over at Kenner, was just making these over the top prototype designs, and they just didn't seem to click. It's almost like whoever worked on Star Riders was almost like, okay, well, let's just kind of redo what they did for Star Riders, and we'll just kind of make it into Tenko and the Guardians of the Magic and just expect for it to succeed. But it's like, it already didn't work in, you know, in Tenko. So, I mean, it didn't work in Wonder Woman, so why would it work in Tenko?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're talking about these over-the-top designs just being the most ridiculous thing. I mean, it's overworked in the way that so many things in the 90s were overworked. And I love them, but I also recognize that it's like, yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I feel
oh, go ahead, Ter.
I feel like things in the 90s were so more I'm trying to think how to word it. Like there was
Extra.
so much room for like imagination, and like the play was really there. Where I mean, like I think nowadays there really isn't much play or like imagination. I mean I don't know. I don't look at.
I think it's just a different marketing style. That's all. It's like there's a reason why the 80s and 90s dolls are so nostalgic for us, because when we look at them, they have a look to them, and so many things, we
in the
think
same
about
way
it.
that a jazz solo cup has a look.
Well, there you go. Yes. But yeah, it's just like there's something about these designs, and I think that a lot of the people that were working on these properties were there, in the 80s, in the 70s, and so they were inspired by that. And now today, people, they were playing with kids' toys from the 90s and the early 2000s, and now they're creating those characters. And things are becoming a lot more gender neutral, and it's like girls don't have to play with over the top pink dolls. Like they could also play with boys, or the girls can be dressed like boys, or the girls can like girls. Like there's so many new changes, I think, in the viewpoint of society as well.
And I think we need to point out that also that Wonder Woman goes on nearly 30 years later to have a successful doll line with DC superhero girls.
Oh, right.
That is much more true to her roots and much more true to her just being a DC superhero character, And it's got Batgirl and Supergirl and, Green Lantern and recognizable DC characters.
Right.
That people could identify with and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a case study that it takes the right interpretation, and it takes the right approach.
Right. Like I wonder, like bringing in Supergirl, would that have been good to do it as like a season 2 thing, or should that have been done right off the bat? But then that also begs the question then, okay, like what other girls? Because I mean, then it could have been Amethyst. And instead of any of these star writers, it could have been Amethyst and Wonder Woman and Supergirl, like all working together, essentially.
Mm-hmm. You could have had actual DC villainesses. You could have had Cheetah, and you could have had Dark Opal, and
and a crossover with Catwoman.
Yeah, it's like you could have had episode where they go to Gotham City and team up with Batgirl, and because Catwoman's stealing a jewel, It's like
there is a lot of possibilities.
There's a lot of possibilities that where they could have taken this, and while I love it for the weird little cul-de-sac thing that it is for Wonder Woman, I understand why it doesn't work. But that doesn't make me love it any less. And I know it's weird, and I know it's just funky and not well thought out. But I think there's always that element of like the thing that never came to be, and just wanting to know what it would have been like. There's always that mystery, and then your brain fills in exactly like you would have wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I think in many ways, the Wonder Woman and the Star Riders of my imagination is so much more than the actual Wonder Woman and the Star Riders would have been.
That's just because you have this like blue sky idea of, oh my gosh, where could they have taken this? And
exactly. And it's more fun really almost to imagine that. And these are just little, and I think finding little pieces of it becomes a little bit of a not obsession, but just like a little treasure hunt.
Yeah,
because it just feeds that mythology building in my mind.
Right.
Do you guys think we could track down somebody who worked on the line to bring them on and interview them?
Well, I would love that.
That would be awesome.
If I can, we may have to reach out to a few people and see if they maybe know some people.
Well, I'll let What a Doll do all that. Meanwhile, in
okay.
Avalon, Ronnie Del Mar will be working on Jewel Rider things. We've got motion comics coming out and continuing to release videos on our YouTube channel. So we're busy over there.
And we've got a big Tanko podcast coming up later this year.
Yes, because it's celebrating as well. We're celebrating
Yeah.
Tanko. We've got some unreleased videos coming out. So, yeah.
And Wonder Woman and the Star Riders, we're actually celebrating the 30th anniversary of the thing that never happened.
I love celebrating anniversaries of things that don't happen. It's like my forte.
Oh
my
my gosh.
Ask.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up for Wonder Woman and the Star Riders. If you want to find out more from What a Doll, you can find us on pretty much any social media platform at What a Doll Pod or at our home on Podbean. And if you want to hear more from the Jewel Riders Archive, you can find us at jewelridersarchive.com or at Jewel Riders or at Jewel Riders Archive on most social media platforms. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for lots more coming, like Ronnie says. And I think with that, happy doll hunting. And if anybody knows anything more about Star Riders, shoot us a message and share. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody.
I feel left out. We gotta say my catchphrase.
Friends together.
Friends forever. Thank you. Sorry. I was like, I can't sign off yet. Okay, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Bye and happy collecting.